Hello and welcome to government class. In today's government class, we'll be looking at the pre-colonial systems of administration in Nigeria. We'll be looking at it from the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria: the Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yoruba. Pre-colonial political systems. How did the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Hausas in the pre-colonial days, how did they go about their activities? How did they make laws? How did they carry out disciplines on those who broke laws? Who were the people that were in charge of making policies to ensure that everything was going smoothly in town? And how did they pay taxes? Who collected the taxes? What were these taxes used for? This is what we'll be looking at in this class, which is the pre-colonial systems of administration in Nigeria. First, we'll be starting with the Hausa pre-colonial system of administration. Before we go straight into the pre-colonial system of administration in Hausa land, let's take a look at a brief history of how the Hausa land, of how the pre-colonial system of administration came to place in the Hausa land. The first thing is the fact that there was a jihad. Before, the Hausas were on their own before they became the Hausa Fulani tribe, which is very popular in Nigeria right now. Hausa Fulani. The Hausas were on their own until the 18th century when Uthman Dan Fodio led a jihad, and the jihad is seen not only as a religious jihad, but also as a political jihad, because Uthman Dan Fodio, after the jihad in the 18th century, Uthman Dan Fodio then created a new kingdom, which was the Sokoto Caliphate and the Gwandu Caliphate. So these two caliphates were we can call them the headquarters of the Hausas then, and then the representatives, that is the emir of the Sokoto Caliphate and the emir of the Gwandu Caliphate, would give reports back to Uthman Dan Fodio. Then the Sokoto Caliphate was in the eastern region, while the Gwandu Caliphate was in the western region, and the emir in the Gwandu Caliphate broke the whole caliphate into what we call empires. So the emir in the Sokoto Caliphate and the Gwandu Caliphate, they broke down both the eastern and the western caliphates into what we call empires, and then they appointed emirs to be the head of each empires that they created. So the empires of the Sokoto Caliphate, which is in the eastern region, would report back to the emir of the Sokoto Caliphate, and then the emir of the Sokoto Caliphate would report back to Uthman Dan Fodio. So this was how the political system in the Hausa land came to place. Let's go a little deeper into the empires that these representatives at Sokoto and Gwandu created. So the first thing is the fact that they are empires, and for each empires, it was headed by an emir. So who is an emir? The emir is the head of the government. He has the responsibility of making laws, maintaining peace in his emirate in accordance with the provisions of the Islamic and the Sharia law. So the emir is like the president. But we won't really call him the president, since he also has to go and report back to the representatives at both Gwandu and Sokoto, depending on which region the emir is. So let's call the emir like the governor. So the emir would make laws, and he was responsible for maintaining peace in his emirate. And they always do this in accordance with the provision of both the Islamic and the Sharia laws. So let's look at the emir as the governor. So the emir then broke down the whole empire into what we call districts. And this district was headed by someone that is called an Hakimi. The emir is broken down into districts, and these districts are headed by someone called an Hakimi. The reason why the emir is broken into districts is for ease of tax collection. In the Hausa land, they collect taxes. So they broke down. The emir breaks down the empire into districts, and the district is headed by an Akimi so that tax collection would be easier. Now, what the Akimi does is the Akimi further breaks down these districts into villages. And then these villages are headed by people that are called village heads. So what they do, these villages are also broken down in order to ease tax collection. In Hausa, they collect tax a lot. They have the zakat, they have the jangili, and many more tax. When we get there, we'll look into it in more details. The emir was also assisted in his duties by a number of people that I would call like special advisors. You know that even with our governors in this present day Nigeria, our governors have special advisors. So let's call these people special advisors. So the emir was assisted in his duties of administering the emirate by people we call special advisors, by a number of advisors. Let's look more into who these advisors were. The first advisor we have is the waziri. The waziri is the head of the officials, is the head of all the officials. So we can say the waziri is like the prime minister, like the deputy governor. So let's look at the Akimi as the deputy governor. So he was a very senior advisor in the administration. In fact, in textbooks, they call him the prime minister. The next special advisor we'll be looking at is the Galadima. The Galadima was in charge of the capital. The Galadima was in charge of the capital. So we can look at him as someone, for example, Lagos, Ikeja. So we can look at the Galadima as someone in charge of Ikeja as a whole. Ikeja as the capital of Lagos State. In textbook, we would see the emir as the president, but the emir, I don't want us to forget the fact that the emir also has to report back to the representatives of Uthman Danfodio at Sokoto Caliphate and Gwandu Caliphate. So because I don't want us to mix this up, that's why I'm saying the emir is the governor, but in textbooks, they would refer to the emir as the president. So we have the Galadima. The Galadima was in charge of the capital. We have the Madwaki. The Madwaki, in some textbooks, they also call him the Madaki. They removed the wa. So the Madwaki or the Madaki, he was the commander of the army. So we can see him as the chief of the army staff. We can see him as the commander of the army, the Madwaki. Then we have the Dogari. The Dogari is the head of the police. So we can see him as the Chief Inspector General of the police. So the Dogari was the head of the police. Then we have the Maji. The Maji was in charge of the treasury. So we can see the Maji as the governor of the CBN. I'm using these illustrations to make it easier for us to remember in case they come up as objective questions. And then we also have the Sakinruwa. The Sakinruwa was the river fishing official. I guess back then in the Hausa state, they had a lot of fishing festivals, and fishing was probably one of their major occupations. So they had someone who was in charge of fishing. And one other important function of the Sakinruwa is that when fishing festivals were about coming up, he was in charge of the preparation of the fishing festivals and things related to fishing. We also have the Sakin Power. The Sakin Power was the head of all butchers. So I guess back in the pre-colonial Hausa times, they had butchers and they needed somebody to be the head of all butchers to ensure that things are not just going anyhow. Probably that was one of the major occupations back in the pre-colonial Hausa time. We also have the Sakin Father. The Sakin Father was the head of all the palace workers. So he was in charge of the maids, the chefs, the people that would, the palace guards, every palace workers. The Sakin Father was the head of all the palace workers. So we can see him as the chief palace worker, probably the person that ensures that Aso Rock, the activities in Aso Rock is going well and all this and all the rest. So I'm just using this illustration to help us remember better.